Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, coming on the air because there is a tornado emergency in toward parts of Iowa here, the community of Essex there, and some real significant danger here from a very large and extremely dangerous tornado. I know today's threat was supposed to be one where we did have a chance for tornadoes, but the hail risk was supposed to be a little bit more predominant. There has been some large hail in the Omaha region, the vicinity, but now we have seen a situation where it's taken a turn for the worse here in toward parts of southwestern Iowa. A rogue storm has been producing a very significant tornado. Now it's headed toward a community. I know some of these areas are a little more rural sometimes, so you have a situation where sometimes you don't have, the populated zones impacted as much here, but now we do right around Essex, Iowa here, a catastrophic tornado potentially on the ground. So let me go ahead and jump to our other source, and you can kind of see what we're talking about. Right over, areas there in toward that community, a potentially catastrophic tornado in progress. And now the debris signature right before they issued the tornado emergency was a little bit more maybe well defined. Having a little radar issue though, so it's hard to say 100% here as we're tracking the scenario, but tornado emergency in effect there as we're looking toward parts of Iowa with catastrophic damage a possibility here. So let me go ahead and keep looking at some of our sources. I know, just trying to give you guys the very latest information to protect you, your friends, and your family here. A catastrophic tornado in progress, according to the Weather Service in Omaha, Nebraska. This is in southwestern Iowa. A very rogue storm with a hook has now been producing something very dangerous, moving in toward a community there. Tornado emergency for Essex, Iowa there. Southwestern Iowa. Just continuing to give you guys the latest here. Not a good set of circumstances. Just continuing to give you updates here as the situation does progress here. As we're looking at things, just not what you want to hear. I think based on radar indications, let me just double check something because one of the data feeds having an issue here. I want to kind of get an idea of where this tornado may have went. The town's kind of small here, I'll see on our map, so there's a chance that I had just been just now, in the last few seconds going just north of town here, the worst, where we had the strongest winds by far. Could have got some winds in the overall pattern, but it's possible that they took a hit. I'm just trying to, see here with debris tracker. It would kind of appear preliminarily, and I have to check here to see if there's any report of something different, but preliminarily, the worst of this may have just went right north of town, but nonetheless, a potentially catastrophic tornado there in toward Iowa here. We're talking about areas around Page, Montgomery, and Fremont counties here. This is an area where I know, again, the threat wasn't overwhelming, but we break in for tornado emergencies, and this is something where, in theory, you could have a strong to violent tornado that's been headed in the direction of a community here. So not a good set of circumstances at all as I'm checking the information here in toward the Weather Center. Just trying to give you guys the latest updates here on what we're dealing with. Again, a tornado emergency in southwestern Iowa right now. A potentially catastrophic tornado in progress. So not what you want to hear, obviously. That's why we had to come on with this live coverage. Because we had that issue, a catastrophic tornado there, as we're looking at things potentially there toward that community. So again, we're on the air right now because of this. I'm just checking here the latest updates. Just trying to get an idea here what's going on. This could be kind of shifting directions at times, so need to be really careful here. Need to be really careful, anywhere in the box as we're looking ahead toward the east. I know there's some, just visuals here I can't show in the air that makes this tornado look very significant. And even if you don't get hit by the tornado itself there in Essex, downtown, they could have still got very strong winds on the back side of this. I mean, we could have had winds there, that are ones that could have knocked out power toward town, even if they didn't get, the winds maybe upward of 150. Still could be getting gust about hurricane force coming through on the back, bottom side of things here. So, again, as we're looking at the overall setup, that's why it's very important to take shelter in a polygon. As we're looking here, a tornado was reported at the Pierce Creek Recreation Area. That was at about 8:50 Central Time up there. And they issued this emergency 1 minute later. So, roof rate downdraft, just the overall pattern here can be very problematic too if you don't get hit by the tornado. So, again, just continuing to track this situation. The threat was an enhanced one for today. But it's a scenario where we're kind of thinking meteorologically here, maybe one where we wouldn't get tornado emergencies. Those are reserved for the worst case scenarios here, where you could have a strong to violent tornado hitting a town. But unfortunately, we had that escalation here in about the last 12 minutes or so with the Weather Service issuing this Omaha, Nebraska office covering parts of southwestern Iowa, calling this a potentially catastrophic tornado there. When they put this out, they were talking about the dangers associated with this and saying that it was a large and destructive tornado 3 miles west of Essex here, or 13 miles southwest of Red Oak, moving east at 30 miles an hour. Fremont, Montgomery, and Page counties. Okay, we just got an update now. They've taken the emergency tag away because it's no longer in a more populated area. Could be one of the reasons for that, possibly. It's, not right toward that town anymore, and the re-signature may not be as apparent either. So, again, so the tornado emergency that was in effect is no longer. However, there's still the potential of a large and extremely dangerous tornado on the ground. So, not at all clear by any stretch of the imagination for areas downstream, because there's probably still a significant situation there towards State Road 48 in southwestern Iowa. So, no longer a tornado emergency. This is the only tornado warning in that, region in the whole country now, in fact. But they've taken the tornado emergency tag off of this, and they're saying now it's going to remain over mainly rural areas of south central Montgomery County in Iowa, northwestern Page counties, and including one location, Coburg there. And just got to still be careful because tornadoes are extremely difficult to see and confirm at night. Do not wait to see or hear the tornadoes. You want to take shelter in these situations. There is a tornado watch in play here that remains in effect until midnight Central Time. Midnight Central Time here as we're tracking things. Just got to be careful up there in the southwestern Iowa. I know the overall risk today was an enhanced one, but again for hail, or some areas I've seen maybe 4-inch hail based on reports, a 30% hail risk there. That's what triggered the enhanced. The tornado is a slight risk here. Tornado emergency and a slight risk. You don't see that all that often. The wind risk also is slight, 2 out of 5. That's something we get in North Florida and South Florida quite a bit. Technically, there's an enhanced risk because of the hail threat, though. That was noteworthy. Other threat, not as noteworthy, but obviously you just got to always remain alert for rapidly changing weather conditions here. And in southwestern Iowa, we did have for, about 10 minutes there, a tornado emergency in play. As you saw how tight the rotation was, it was missing the most popular areas, after we kind of got the confirmation. I will say some of these reports don't quite match up with rotation tracker, but I'm sure some very big hail in this region. Still over 2 inches possible around Coburg, Iowa, to Essex, somewhere in there. This is still a very bad storm, but it's no longer a tornado emergency, so that's good. I know in the days to come it could change. It very well could change here, as we're tracking things, as we're looking at things here. But right now, the risk in the days to come are going to be ones here of the slight risk nature so far. They're over a big area, though, and some of those areas within those zones could definitely get upgraded. There's a slight risk, though, from Texas to Michigan tomorrow, with the highest tornado risk, about west of Oklahoma City, so around Fort Steele there, and Lawton, and Altus, El Reno there, kind of that vicinity. And then as we look ahead to the following day of severe risk, the highest is from the Texas-Mexico border in the U.S. up into about central Missouri. So that's on Saturday. And then on Easter Sunday there, we have a risk going from eastern Texas, southeast Texas, all the way up to about St. Louis. So slight risk days, but we could have something, just all of a sudden take that turn further worse, like what we did here with the tornado emergency. You know, very rogue in nature, quite honestly, here, because it's more about a hail winter, a more local story for those folks. And then all of a sudden it took that escalation to a national storyline where you had the potential for a catastrophic tornado on the ground. As we were looking, it still could be very significant at times, though, but maybe, you know, just needs to be continue to be monitored as we look downstream, because, you know, there's always a chance that something could get a little bit worse again. And the pre-signature not near as apparent. It's also kind of in between towns right now because, you know, more rural out there. You have a lot of what I would presume, could be wrong, but presume more farmland and the like here based on some of the topography I'm looking at here on the map. That's what that would indicate. But it was headed toward a town there for a moment. It probably had some strong, violent winds there. Though that might not have been from the tornado directly based on very initial indications, though we still weren't 100% sure on that because some of these tornado reports couldn't see where the chasers are and they're putting their coordinates in, and the tornado's actually in a little bit different spot to the north. But we're still efforting to see if the tornado actually hit that 10 or if they had some very strong winds. That's, you know, something that probably don't need to wait around for and maybe confirming. So again, as we continue to watch here and toward the Weather Center, it's 9:08 Central Time here in the Central Time Zone. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center again. Canceled per se. I mean, it's not a canceling, you know, maybe not the right word, but the tornado emergency is no longer in effect, but it's still a tornado that could be large and extremely dangerous here. So again, just continuing to track this here. There's like Hepburn, Iowa. Let me look at my other maps here. And they're not under the tornado warning yet. But Hepburn and then some other communities. Let me go ahead and, okay, they just did a new warning here. It would appear. Okay, they're going PDS, particularly dangerous. You know, gotta remain alert. We could get another tornado emergency eventually on this here if we're not careful. So we just gotta be remaining alert here. A new tornado warning here as we're tracking things. Considerable threat. Let me see if I can get this on the screen better. So there you go. Confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado is looking at 7 miles northeast of Essex or 8 miles south of Reddick, moving east at 30. And there's some of these communities like around 920 Central. So still could be, you know, something that is, you know, probably large and extremely dangerous here. And it could be headed towards some of these communities. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that one there, but you kind of have to just be on guard here and taking, you know, the situation seriously in the reports of Montgomery and Page counties there in southwestern Iowa. So again, as we're looking here, just got to be really careful. Tornado emergency no longer in effect, but we still have to be mindful here of what can happen. You know, I don't see the debris at this moment really apparent, but those are very strong winds. If this tightens, you know, up anymore, we could have a very significant tornado on the ground again headed toward a town and get another tornado emergency. 70 one way, about 80 to 90 the other way. So that is winds about 160 miles an hour as we're looking at things there. If this does try to touch back down into towards southwestern Iowa, I know the structure on this not as well defined as it was earlier on. I know it's not going all the way back, but it's got to be remaining alert for these rapidly changing conditions here in towards southwestern Iowa. We're just continuing to give you guys the very latest on that. We're just continuing to track it. That's not in our area, not in our 62 counties, not in North Florida, South Georgia, but when we have a tornado emergency, we needed to come on. You know, I'm going to watch it a little longer before I jump off because I just don't want this to ramp back up. I have to do another cut-in, you know, as we'll have our formal update here later tonight. And, you know, it's been a very traumatic day there toward Florida State Capitol there, toward Leon County, toward Tallahassee, toward FSU. You know, if you haven't heard the news, a terrible, terrible shooting situation there toward Tallahassee. Of course, so just for perspective, I'm going to show this. That's in toward Leon County there. as we're giving you the idea of the scenario. And my thoughts and prayers go to my alma mater. We have our garnet and gold logo up. And, just this terrible, terrible set of circumstances as we're looking toward the university tonight. And we'll go ahead and pull up some, of the traffic cameras around there real quick as, just a terrible set of circumstances here on this Thursday. That's April 17th, 2025. That's going to go down in infamy here as we're looking at the situation there toward Leon County. We're going to go ahead and pull our traffic system up. This is a Florida 5-1 perspective there as we're looking toward Pensacola Street and Woodward Avenue. It's just going to be a day that goes down in infamy, obviously, as we're looking right now at about 10:13 here on this Thursday night. That's Eastern time, of course, as we're looking at things. And I know I was there, heard the shots in the 2014 shooting from my resident hall room there at FSU, the Treasure Library shooting, and wasn't there today, of course, here in Stark and Bradford County, North Central Florida, where I reside. But, my thoughts and prayers go to everybody there. That was a terrible day in 2014, and this one here in 2025, innocent loss of life here. Just a day today, a day that's, going to go down in infamy here, sadly, since everybody's at, FSU is united here in this very difficult time. A lot of folks leaving town at this point since classes are canceled here. That Easter weekend, weren't going to be out of class initially here, for the rest of the day and tomorrow, but, they were canceled. All athletic events canceled here because of this tragedy. This just terrible set of circumstances here as we're looking at things right now. So, again, my alma mater, thoughts and prayers here at this very, very difficult time as we look over that way. So, just want to kind of reiterate what we're dealing with there. No tornado emergency right now in Iowa, but I'm continuing to monitor the situation out there toward the west. Here. Just to remind you, the covered area, of course, that we really focus on Leon County. One of the big parts of that, and we see, especially recently here, some of those traffic cameras toward FSU, for some severe weather coverage here recently, and now today, taking that tragic turn with fatalities, according to the police departments there, sheriff's department there. Just a terrible, terrible turn. There it is, April 17, 2025. I know, just, seeing all the images on social media, seeing the different reports here. Just my thoughts and prayers go to everybody impacted here, and all the current students, everybody that was in that area, hearing the shots. I mean, I didn't actually see anything when it happened in 2014, but I was able to hear, the shots from my residence hall room, and it was just a tragic, tragic turn here, to see something like this, in the media happen today. As we look at Copeland and Tennessee Street there, I know there's going to be, it was just reported by Florida State University a little while ago, there's going to be a visual here tomorrow toward campus. I retweeted that. I don't remember the exact details, but it's on my Twitter / Cloud Casey, Florida State University retweeted there. You see even now, it looks like some police there, they maybe just patrolling the region or getting, or maybe just some type of, updates in on where they need to be at, just something, and they could just be leaving the scene too, for that matter. But, horrific day toward Tallahassee as we look there, as we continue to just keep everybody in our thoughts and prayers out that way. I'm watching the storm in Iowa that we cut in for. Of course, the weather, so nice toward Tallahassee, and baseball, softball, having to be canceled there for the weekend because of the tragic set of circumstances toward campus. It's just terrible thinking about the innocent folks who lost their life. That's the most important thing. You just gotta keep those families in your thoughts and prayers here. It's just awful, absolutely awful here as we take another look here toward another traffic camera right now, another Florida 511 perspective as we go over there. Of course, this was in our covered area. We hadn't talked about it, on air. We're tweeting stuff, putting stuff out, sharing stuff on Facebook, but, it's not a situation where, by the time the reports started coming out, it would seem that maybe the shooter potentially, even that, just several minutes there after it happened, is when the alert may have come out, and by then the shooter, just this is how these things work, because everybody's in such a coordinated effort to neutralize the threat that by the time the alert came out, it may have already been kind of a situation where the shooter was neutralized. But again, this is Macomb Street and Tennessee Street there, as we're looking at another Florida 511 perspective. Let me go ahead and just again, I'm just throwing the coverage map up because I don't want to go back to the radar in Iowa. It's kind of, but Leon County, of course, is where Tallahassee is, where FSU is, state capital, and the like. So again, it's just absolutely terrible what happened there today. As we're looking there, some of these roads potentially still shut down toward that region. But let's go ahead and go back to the Doppler. I know it's something that can't move on from very easily, but we need to give another update. That's what we're on for. Is the national weather story here at a very serious situation in toward parts of Iowa. So we need to go ahead and jump back on over to that right now. As I keep my alma mater and everybody impacted in my thoughts and prayers here. Just absolutely awful. We're all FSU United here like we were in 2014. In that November period there, the week before Thanksgiving. Hearing those shots then. Let me go ahead and jump on over here toward the Doppler. That looks quite a bit weaker. I know that blue in there, we're starting to get away from the Omaha radar a little bit. I'm going to check on one of our other sources to see if there's any better radar at this point. These are all now radar indicated warnings. That means I think we can go ahead and start to wrap it up. I'm going to give you one more update though on this situation. I'll check to see if there's any questions or comments here. But again, let me go ahead and show you. This is the Des Moines radar now, it looks like, and yeah, that's for now, and you still gotta remain alert. Still gotta take your tornado precautions, no doubt. But right now, that looks way, way weaker here. Does not look like this. They probably have something on the ground here. We're on the Des Moines radar now, and you can see how around Coburg we had something. Even just this whole area here looked nasty. I know different radars will give you different views here sometimes. And we have seen a real breakup here for now, but this could still try to tighten up since it's kind of to some degree by itself, but it's stretching out a little bit. So you just got to take stock in the warnings, no doubt. Newest warnings for portions of Adams, Taylor counties there in Iowa, according to the Weather Service there. Des Moines office saying radar indicated now and hail to 2 inches. Omaha office saying hail to 1.5 inches. That warning, let me move this over a little bit. I'll see if we can get this on the screen better. So you can kind of make it out. Montgomery and Page counties there in Iowa. So again, that's what we had to come on the air for. We're going to jump on over to other mode here. Bear with me. We had this little pocket of higher tornado parameters in the purple area getting in there. The energy, and it just took that turn there, that escalation in the weather scenario. You see this blue, so all that tight rotation here, and just not what you want to see, obviously, as we're looking out there, toward that area. So again, You know, just like didn't want to see, what we had there toward Florida State University today in Tallahassee, where the terrible tragedy did occur. So we hope we haven't had, a situation where there's been more loss of life in the country this time because of the weather towards southwestern Iowa. So again, you see the tornado watch in the yellow area there that's shaded, and in the pinkest area is a thunderstorm watch. That's going to do it for now. We'll have our full update here later tonight, so tune in for that full forecast and more as we're with you here later tonight. Again, that'll wrap this coverage for now. Pop back in as warranted, if warranted, before our full update. You just see the tornado watch, by the way, expanded east, taken away from the north. Some of these areas drop. You see crest in there. Some of these areas, have had bad weather history on, their areas there. You see south of Des Moines. This includes areas like Osceola there and Cheriton. I believe some of these areas have been hit by severe weather in the last several years in a very significant way. So they'll be watching. If we see something really nasty to rise to that national level of concern again, we'll pop back in here with updates, if it's an emergency. But otherwise, I'll be back with a full update later tonight. Tune in for that then.